In this video, I'm going to create a while loop that takes input from the user in a scanner, validates that it's valid, and then will either go ahead onto the next loop in the while loop and try to get more input from the user, or it will continue on through the program. So what we're doing here is we're creating a control flow for reading input from the user and validating it. So I'm going to create a new Java class, and I'm going to call it video while integer check, and I'm going to do a public static void main here because we want to run it directly. So I'm going to start out with a new scanner, and scanner is just a utility that can read input from the user, and the input stream we're going to use is system.in. And the other thing we're going to create is an integer that is going to tell us whether or not the input is valid. So we are going to try to read in a positive integer. So I'm going to say int user val equals -1. And I'm going to set my while loop to run while it's -1. So while user val equals -1, actually we can do is less than 0, we're going to run this loop. So because I know scanner can blow up if I don't read an integer correctly, I'm going to wrap it in a try-catch block. And I do know that the exception type for scanner is going to be input mismatch exception. The next thing we're going to do is actually try to read this in. So first I'm going to prompt the user and say, just please enter a positive integer. And what we're going to do after that is actually try to read in the value. So I'm going to say user val equals scanner.nextInt. And now it's possible that this will blow up. So what happens if it blows up is that the scanner will still have data in the scanner. So in my exception, where I know this exception is going to occur, I'm going to call scanner.nextInt. Or sorry, next. Because next will always empty the scanner. And what I could do is print out the error message, but that's kind of pointless because we already know actually what it's going to be. So for now I'll print it out, but we'll see it won't really matter. And we kind of just want to go on to the next iteration until a user enters value that's valid. Okay, so down here the user entered a valid value, and just to show this I'm going to print out what the user entered, user val, and just say done, so you know that the program actually ended, because when we run the scanner the program's going to block. And finally we're going to call scanner.close just to close that input stream. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this, and I'm going to do run Java application, and it's going to say please enter a positive integer, and what I'm going to do is enter a negative integer, so -3. Now because user value was actually set to -3, the while loop did that comparison, and it said user val is less than 0. That was true, so it went through the while loop again. So I can keep entering negative numbers all I want, and the loop will keep prompting me. Finally, if I enter a positive value, it's going to accept that value, the while loop will terminate, and it'll say done. Okay, let's enter some completely invalid stuff. So again, I'm going to go to run as Java application and run this application, and let's enter hello world. Okay, so you see we printed out input mismatch exception, and now it's prompting us again to enter a positive integer. I can say test, and that doesn't look very good. So finally let's enter a positive integer, and it'll accept it and say done. I'm going to comment this out because we already know we don't really care about that. So let's run it again and just see that'll go away. Okay, so this is a simple construct to use a while loop with a scanner inside of it and a try-catch block, and it lets you keep collecting input from the user until you get valid input.